I looked down at the neon orange violation notice taped to my front door and felt my stomach drop, because the thing they were citing me for was a 5-pound propane canister sitting next to my patio heater. And I had moved to Richardson, Texas 3 months earlier to rebuild after a rough divorce, and I'll not take one more fight. My name is on a condo deed in the Trails at Juniper Association, a place where the paperwork comes faster than the snow melts and the fees pile up like the ice on the sidewalks. I work as a commercial photographer, so I always have a camera in my bag and extra batteries in my coat, which turned out to be the only reason I survived what came next. The notice was signed by Tina Hughes, Rules Interpretation Chair, and the first line said the propane tank violated Section 9.4 of the covenants and I had 72 hours to remove it, or face fines starting at $250 per day. I pulled the notice down and read it twice. Section 9.4 prohibited open flame devices and combustible fuel storage in common areas or within 10 feet of any structure. My patio was private, not common, and the heater was 15 feet from the building wall. I took 3 photos with my phone, time-stamped and geotagged, showing the setup and the measurements. Then I walked back inside and pulled up the covenants PDF on my laptop. Section 9.4 said exactly what I remembered. The violation was fabricated. I called the management company, Premier Community Services, and got a recorded menu that took 4 minutes to navigate. When I finally reached a human, a woman named Shauna, she told me all enforcement decisions were made by the board and I needed to submit a written appeal within 14 days. I asked her how a rules chair could cite a section that did not apply. She said she could not comment on interpretation and that my appeal would be reviewed at the next quarterly board meeting, which was 8 weeks away. I thanked her and hung up, knowing 8 weeks meant $1,600 in fines if they did not back down. That afternoon, I grabbed my camera and a notepad and drove to the HOA office, a tan prefab building at the front of the neighborhood with a faded Trails at Juniper sign and a parking lot that still had snow piled in the corners. The door was locked. A printed schedule taped to the glass said office hours were Monday and Wednesday, 10 to 2. It was Thursday. I took a photo of the schedule and the locked door, then walked the perimeter and photographed the building, the sign, and the empty lot. I was gathering proof, because I knew from my divorce that documentation wins and emotion loses. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "This is Tina Hughes. I saw you at the office yesterday. If you have questions about the violation, you can call me." I did not remember seeing anyone, but I saved the number and called. She picked up on the second ring. "Tina, this is the resident at 4793 Cypress Ridge. I got your notice about the propane tank. I looked at Section 9.4 and I do not think it applies to my patio." She did not hesitate. The HOA has the authority, whether you like it or not. The board voted to include patio heating devices in the combustible fuel category last year. You can appeal, but the fine schedule starts in 72 hours. I kept my voice level. "Can you send me the amendment that added patio heaters to the list?" There was a pause. "It is in the minutes from the annual meeting. You can request a copy from the management company." "I will do that." "Thanks." She hung up. I immediately called Shauna at Premier and requested the minutes. She said she would email them within 3 business days. I thanked her and started a spreadsheet to track every call, every email, every notice, and every deadline. 2 days later, the minutes arrived. I opened the PDF and searched for propane, patio heater, and combustible. Nothing. I searched for Section 9.4. Nothing. I printed the entire document and highlighted every rule change. None of them mentioned heating devices. I called Tina back. "I got the minutes. There is no amendment about patio heaters." She sighed, loud and deliberate. "You do not have the stomach for this. The board interprets the covenants, and I wrote half of them. If you want to fight, go ahead, but you will lose and you will pay." I kept my hands open and my voice calm, because the real move was still ahead. I thanked her and hung up. Then I emailed Shauna a formal appeal with the photos, the measurements, the covenant text, and a request for the board vote Tina mentioned. Shauna replied 2 hours later saying my appeal was received and would be added to the agenda for the next meeting. That night, my friend Jordan came over. Jordan works in IT for a law firm and has a talent for verifying metadata and timestamps. I showed him the notice, the photos, the minutes, and the text exchange. He pulled out his laptop and started digging. Within 20 minutes, he had the original metadata from the notice PDF. It had been created 4 days before Tina claimed the board voted on my case. He pulled up the board meeting schedule from the HOA website. No meeting had been held that week. "This is bad," he said. "She is making stuff up. You need to get this in front of someone who can fire her." I nodded. "I am working on it." The 72 hours expired on a Saturday. I moved the propane tank into my storage closet, took photos showing it was gone, and emailed them to Shauna with a note saying I had complied under protest and expected the violation to be rescinded. Monday morning I got a new notice, this time by certified mail. It said I owed $250 for a late compliance fee, plus a $50 administrative fee, and I had 10 days to pay or the account would be sent to collections and a lien would be filed against my unit. I called Shauna and asked how I could owe a late fee when I had complied within the deadline, and provided proof. She said the fee was for failing to comply before the notice was issued. I asked her to explain how that made sense. She put me on hold. When she came back, she said the board had determined that the violation existed prior to the notice and the fee was retroactive. I asked for the board minutes showing that determination. She said she would check with the chair. That afternoon I was editing photos at my desk when I heard a knock. I opened the door and found a man in a reflective vest holding a clipboard. He said he was with a property inspection company contracted by the Trails at Juniper Association, and he needed to document my patio for a compliance review. I asked to see his work order. He showed me a printed sheet with the HOA letterhead and my address. The sheet said the inspection was to verify removal of prohibited items and assess additional violations. I stepped outside with my camera. The man walked to my patio, took photos of the heater stand, the empty space where the tank had been, and the storage closet door. Then he looked at the siding, the window frames, and the gutter. He made notes on his clipboard. I asked what he was looking for. He said he was checking for code compliance and unauthorized modifications. I told him I had made no modifications. He shrugged and kept writing. I took photos of him, his vest, his truck, and his clipboard from a distance. When he left, I called Jordan. "They sent a vendor to intimidate me," I said. "He was taking notes on stuff that has nothing to do with the propane tank." Jordan swore. "They are building a case to bury you in fees. You need to get ahead of this." "I know. I am working on it." The next morning I got an email from Shauna. It said the inspection report identified 3 additional violations: a window screen with a small tear, a gutter bracket that was loose, and a patio doormat that was not an approved color. Each violation carried a $50 fine. Total owed $450 due in 10 days. I replied with photos showing the screen was factory installed and undamaged, the gutter bracket was secure, and the mat was plain black, which was listed as an approved color in the design guidelines. Shauna did not respond. That weekend I was walking to the Mailbox cluster when I saw Tina standing by the curb with a rolling file cart. The cart was navy blue with a handle and wheels, and it was stuffed with folders, binders, and loose papers. She was wearing a purple parka and a burgundy knit beanie, and her gray hair was pulled into a ponytail. She looked up and waved me over. "I need to talk to you," she said. Her breath fogged in the cold air. "The board reviewed your appeal. It was denied. You still owe the fees." "I do not owe anything," I said. "The violation was invalid, and I complied within the deadline." She pulled a folder from the cart and flipped it open. "You do not understand how this works. The board has the authority whether you like it or not. We can fine you, we can file a lien, and we can foreclose if you do not pay. You signed the covenants when you bought your unit." I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder. "I want to make sure I understand. You are saying the board denied my appeal even though the minutes show no vote on patio heaters and the violation does not match the covenant text." She snapped the folder shut. "Stop recording me." "I am standing on a public sidewalk," I said. "I can record whatever I want." She stepped closer. "You do not have the stomach for this. You just moved here, you do not know anyone, and you think you can fight the whole board. I have been doing this for 9 years. I know every rule, every loophole, and every way to make your life hell. Pay the fees or we will file the lien next week. I kept the phone steady. What is the board vote that authorized the lien? She turned and grabbed the cart handle. You will get the paperwork in the mail. She walked away, wheels crunching over the ice. I stopped the recording and sent it to Jordan with a note. She just threatened me on tape. He replied in under a minute. That is gold. Keep pushing. The lien notice arrived on Tuesday. It was a formal letter from a law firm in Dallas, stating that the Trails at Juniper Association had filed a lien against my property for unpaid fees totaling $450, plus $300 in legal fees, plus interest accruing at 18% per year. The letter said I had 30 days to pay in full, or the association could pursue foreclosure. I called the law firm and asked to speak to the attorney who signed the letter. I was transferred twice and then got voicemail. I left a message asking for the board resolution authorizing the lien and the invoice showing how the legal fees were calculated. No one called back. That night, Jordan came over again and we went through everything. He pulled up the Texas property code on his laptop and showed me the sections on HOA liens. The law required the board to hold a hearing and give the homeowner a chance to respond before filing a lien. I had received no hearing notice. Jordan printed the statute and highlighted the relevant sections. Then he helped me draft a demand letter to the management company and the law firm, citing the code and requesting the lien be withdrawn within 10 days. I mailed the letter certified. 3 days later, I got a call from a number I did not recognize. It was a man who said he was a regional supervisor with Premier Community Services. His name was Greg. He said he had reviewed my file and he wanted to meet in person. I agreed. We set a time for the next afternoon at a coffee shop in Richardson. Greg was in his 50s, balding, with a gray jacket and a tired expression. He sat down with a folder and a coffee and got straight to it. I looked at your file. The violation notice was filed by Tina Hughes without a board vote. The inspection was ordered by Tina Hughes without board approval. The lien was requested by Tina Hughes, and the attorney filed it based on her representation that the board had authorized it. The board did not authorize it. I leaned back. So everything was fabricated. He nodded. Tina has been the rules chair for 3 years. She has a history of aggressive enforcement, but this is the first time we have caught her filing false paperwork. We are looking into other cases now. I can tell you that we will withdraw the lien and the fees today. I am also recommending that the board remove her from the rules committee. I pulled out my phone and opened my folder of screenshots. I have recordings, photos, and metadata showing she created the violation notice before any board meeting. I also have a recording of her threatening me at the mailbox. I can send it all to you. Greg took my email address and said he would follow up. I asked him what happens to homeowners who already paid bogus fees. He said the company would review every case Tina touched in the past 2 years and issue refunds where appropriate. I asked if there would be any consequences for Tina beyond removal from the committee. He said that was up to the board, but the management company was considering terminating the contract with the Trails at Juniper if the board did not take action. 2 days later, I got an email from Shauna saying the lien had been withdrawn, all fees and fines had been canceled, and my account was clear. She apologized for the confusion and said the board would be holding an emergency meeting the following week. I replied thanking her and asking for a copy of the meeting agenda. She sent it an hour later. The only item on the agenda was a vote to remove Tina Hughes from the Rules Committee and appoint an interim chair. I called Jordan and told him. He laughed. You actually did it. Not yet, I said. She is still on the board. The emergency meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Wednesday at the clubhouse, a small building near the pool with a meeting room and a kitchenette. I arrived 15 minutes early. Jordan came with me. The parking lot was almost full. Inside, about 30 residents were already seated in folding chairs facing a long table at the front. Tina was sitting at the table with 4 other board members, her rolling file cart parked beside her chair. She saw me, and her face went red. The meeting started with the board president, a man named Rick, reading the agenda. He said the board had received a complaint from the management company regarding unauthorized enforcement actions by the rules chair. He asked Tina if she wanted to make a statement. She stood up, grabbed a folder from her cart, and launched into a 10-minute defense. She said she had been enforcing the covenants faithfully for years, that residents routinely ignored the rules, and that the management company was undermining her authority because they did not want to deal with complaints. She said the propane tank case was a clear violation and I was trying to bully the board with legal threats. When she finished, Rick asked if anyone else wanted to speak. I raised my hand. He called on me. I stood up and pulled out my phone. I have recordings, photos, and documents showing that Tina Hughes filed a violation notice with no board vote, ordered an inspection with no board approval, and requested a lien with no hearing. I also have a recording of her threatening me at the mailbox. I would like to play it. Rick nodded. I played the recording. Tina's voice came through clear. You do not have the stomach for this. You just moved here, you do not know anyone, and you think you can fight the whole board. I have been doing this for 9 years. I know every rule, every loophole, and every way to make your life hell. The room went silent. Tina sat down. Rick looked at the other board members. After a moment, he said the board would take a short recess to discuss. Everyone filed out. Jordan and I stood by the coffee station. Residents came up and thanked me. One woman said Tina had fined her 2 years earlier for a mailbox flag that was the wrong shade of red. Another man said Tina had threatened to tow his truck for parking in a guest spot overnight. Both said they had paid the fines because they did not know they could fight. 10 minutes later, Rick called everyone back in. He said the board had voted 4-1 to remove Tina Hughes from the Rules Committee, effective immediately. The dissenting vote was Tina. He also said the board was requesting a full audit of all enforcement actions taken in the past 2 years, and any homeowner who believed they had been fined improperly could submit a complaint to the management company. Tina stood up, grabbed her cart, and walked out. The wheels squeaked on the tile floor. No one said anything until the door slammed behind her. Rick looked at me. I apologize on behalf of the board. This should not have happened. We will do better. I nodded. I appreciate that. The meeting ended. Jordan and I walked out to the parking lot. The air was cold and sharp and snow was starting to fall again, light flakes drifting under the streetlights. Jordan clapped me on the shoulder. You won. I watched the snow for a moment. Not yet. She is still on the board. She can still vote. He shook his head. Give it time. The other residents are pissed. She is done. I wanted to believe him, but I knew better. People like Tina do not quit. They double down. 2 weeks later, I was loading camera gear into my car when I got a call from a number I did not recognize. It was a man who said he worked for a towing company contracted by the Trails at Juniper Association. He said my car was parked in a fire lane and he had been dispatched to tow it. I looked at my car. It was in my assigned spot, clearly marked with my unit number. I told him that. He said he had a work order and he was hooking up the car in 5 minutes unless I could provide proof of ownership and valid parking assignment. I grabbed my phone, my camera, and my folder of HOA documents and ran outside. The tow truck was parked at the curb, yellow lights flashing. The driver was a young guy in a heavy coat and work gloves. I showed him my registration, my deed, and the parking assignment letter from the management company. He looked at the papers, then at his clipboard. He said the work order came from Tina Hughes and listed my car as abandoned in a fire lane. I pointed to the painted lines and the unit number on the curb. He scratched his head. This does not match the order, he said. I need to call my dispatcher. He walked back to his truck and got on the radio. I took photos of the truck, the license plate, the work order clipboard, and my car in the assigned spot. Then I called Greg at Premier. He picked up on the third ring. I explained what was happening. He swore and said he would call the towing company and cancel the order. He also said Tina was no longer authorized to request any enforcement actions and he would be sending a formal notice to all vendors. The driver came back. My dispatcher just got a call from your management company. The order is canceled. Sorry for the hassle. I thanked him and watched him drive away. Then I called Jordan. She just tried to have my car towed from my own spot. He was quiet for a second. She is escalating. You need to get this on record. I know. That afternoon, I filed a police report for harassment. The officer who took the report said it was a civil matter and the police could not intervene in HOA disputes, but he wrote it up and gave me a case number. I also sent Greg a formal complaint with photos, the tow order, and the police report number. Greg replied within an hour. He said the management company was terminating its relationship with the Trails at Juniper Association unless the board removed Tina Hughes entirely. He CC'd the board president. The next morning, Rick called me. He said the board was holding a special meeting that evening to vote on removing Tina from the board entirely. He said I was welcome to attend, but I did not need to speak unless I wanted to. I said I would be there. The meeting room was packed. More than 50 residents showed up. Tina was not there. Rick opened the meeting and explained that the board had received multiple complaints about Tina Hughes, including false enforcement actions, unauthorized vendor orders, and harassment. He said the management company had given the board an ultimatum: remove Tina or lose the contract. He called for a vote. The motion passed 4-0, with Tina's seat vacant. One resident stood up and asked what happens to people who paid fines based on Tina's false violations. Rick said the management company was reviewing every case and would issue refunds within 60 days. Another resident asked if Tina would face any legal consequences. Rick said that was up to individual homeowners to pursue in civil court, but the board would cooperate with any investigation. After the meeting, Jordan and I walked back to my car. The snow had stopped, and the sky was clearing. Jordan looked at me. "So what are you going to do now?" I shrugged. "I am going to finish unpacking. Maybe get a new patio heater." He laughed. "You earned it." A month later, I got a check in the mail from Premier Community Services for $450, the total amount I had been fined. The memo line said refund for invalid enforcement action. I also got a letter from Rick saying the board had appointed a new rules chair and implemented a policy requiring all enforcement actions to be approved by a majority vote before any notice could be sent to a resident. The letter thanked me for holding the board accountable. I framed the letter and hung it in my office next to a photo I took of the Mailbox cluster the night of the final showdown. The photo shows Tina standing by her rolling file cart, her face red, her finger pointing at me, and a small crowd of neighbors forming a circle around us. In the foreground, barely visible in the snow, is the green propane canister that started everything. Jordan came over a few days later and we sat on the patio with the heater running. The tank was back in place, the flame was steady, and the air was cold and clean. He raised his beer. "To documentation." I clinked my bottle against his. "To documentation." We sat in silence for a while, watching the snow fall on the empty sidewalk. The Trails at Juniper Association sent out its next newsletter a week later. There was a new section titled Enforcement Policy Update. It outlined the new approval process, the audit results, and a notice that 12 residents had received refunds totaling over $6,000. Tina's name was not mentioned, but everyone knew. I ran into one of the board members at the Mailbox a few weeks later. She thanked me again and said the board was considering hiring a professional management company to handle all enforcement going forward. She also said Tina had moved out of the neighborhood. I did not ask where she went. I did not care. Spring came slowly. The snow melted, the ice turned to slush, and the sidewalks cleared. I started taking my camera out in the mornings, shooting the neighborhood as it thawed. The Trails at Juniper looked different in the light. The lawns were brown and patchy, the trees were bare, and the Mailbox cluster had a coat of rust where the salt had eaten through the paint. But the streets were quiet, the notices stopped coming, and the rolling file cart was gone. I kept every document, every photo, every recording, and every email in a folder on my desktop. I labeled it HOA 2025 and backed it up to 3 different drives. Jordan said I was paranoid. I said I was prepared. He said that was the same thing. I said maybe it was, and maybe that was fine. One afternoon I was editing photos when I got a text from a neighbor I had never met. She said her friend in another HOA in Plano was dealing with a similar situation and asked if I would be willing to talk to her. I said yes. We met for coffee the next day. I showed her my documentation system, the statute Jordan had found, and the timeline of how I escalated the case. She took notes and thanked me. A month later, she sent me a message saying her friend had won her case and the board had issued a formal apology. I started getting more messages. People found me through neighborhood forums and HOA Facebook groups. Most of them had the same story. A board member or a management company was fining them for made-up violations, and they did not know how to fight back. I sent them the templates I had used, the statutes, and the contact information for Greg at Premier. Some of them won. Some of them gave up. A few of them moved. Jordan asked me once if I regretted buying into an HOA. I thought about it. I said I regretted that Tina had power and no oversight, and I regretted that the board let her run wild for years. But I did not regret buying the place. I liked the neighborhood. I liked the quiet streets and the mature trees and the walking path that ran behind the units. I liked that it felt like a community, even when the community was broken. He said that was a generous way to look at it. I said maybe, but it was also true. I still see the mailbox cluster every day. The cart marks are faded now, worn smooth by the wheels of a dozen other residents checking their mail. The snow is gone, the ice is gone, and the propane canister is still sitting next to my patio heater, right where it belongs. Every time I walk past it, I think about Tina's voice on that recording. You do not have the stomach for this. I think about how close I came to paying the fees and moving on, how easy it would have been to let it go and chalk it up to bad luck. I think about the woman with the mailbox flag and the man with the truck and the 12 other residents who got their money back. I think about the way the board looked at Tina after I played the recording, the way the room went silent, the way her face went from red to pale in under a second. I think about the rolling file cart, the navy blue fabric, the squeaky wheels, the way she always had it with her like a prop in a play. I think about how much power she thought it gave her, how much authority she believed it represented. I think about the way it looked parked in the corner of the meeting room after she walked out, abandoned and empty, a symbol of nothing. The Trails at Juniper Association is quieter now. The new rules chair is a retired accountant who sends polite emails and schedules hearings before issuing fines. The board meetings are shorter and less dramatic. The parking lot is still a mess when it snows, and the clubhouse heat still does not work right, but the notices stopped coming and the fees stopped piling up. People wave when I walk to the mailbox. A few of them ask how I am doing. One guy asked if I was the photographer who took down the HOA Karen. I said I was just the guy with the camera and the receipts. Jordan still comes over once a week. We sit on the patio with the heater running and we talk about work, about the neighborhood, about the next camera I want to buy. He asks me sometimes if I am worried Tina will come back. I tell him no. She sold her unit, she moved to another city, and even if she came back, the board would not let her near the rules committee again. He says that is probably true, but people like her always find another neighborhood. I say that is probably true too, and I hope the next person she targets has a camera and a friend who knows metadata. The propane canister is still there, sitting on the concrete, frost forming on the valve in the early mornings. I check it every day. I take a photo of it once a month, time-stamped and geotagged, just in case. Jordan says that is excessive. I say it is evidence. He says evidence of what? I say evidence that I was right. The refund check sits in a drawer in my desk. I did not cash it. I kept it as a reminder. Jordan said that was weird. I said it was a trophy. He said trophies are supposed to go on the wall. I said some trophies are private. I still take photos of the neighborhood, the Trails at Juniper Association in winter and spring, in the early mornings when the light is soft and the streets are empty. I have a series now, 30 or 40 images, all taken from the same spots, showing the way the place changes and stays the same. I submitted a few of them to a local gallery. They did not take them. The curator said they were too quiet, too suburban, not dramatic enough. I said that was the point. She said maybe I should shoot something with more edge. I said I had plenty of edge, I just did not put it in the frame. Jordan asked me once if I would move again. I said maybe, someday, but not because of the HOA. He said that was good, because moving is expensive and exhausting, and life is too short to let a board member run you out of your own home. I agreed. I said that was the lesson I learned from all of this. Stay, fight, document, win. He said that sounded like a motivational poster. I said it sounded like survival. The board sent out a survey last month asking residents for feedback on the new enforcement policy. I filled it out. I said the policy was a significant improvement and I appreciated the transparency. I also said the board should consider term limits for committee chairs and mandatory training on the Texas Property Code. I do not know if they will implement any of it, but at least they asked. I ran into Rick at the grocery store a few weeks ago. He thanked me again for holding the board accountable. He said the new management company was working out well and the neighborhood felt calmer. I said I was glad to hear it. He said he was sorry it took so long for the board to act. I said I understood. He said he hoped I did not have any hard feelings. I said I did not, but I also said I would not forget. The truth is I do have hard feelings. I have hard feelings about the notices, the fees, the lien, the tow truck, the inspection, the threats, the lies, and the way Tina looked at me that day by the mailbox like I was nothing, like I did not matter, like I would fold the moment she raised her voice. I have hard feelings about the way the board let her run wild for years, about the way the management company looked the other way, about the way a dozen residents paid money they did not owe because they did not know they could fight. But I also know that hard feelings are not the same as unfinished business. The business is finished. Tina is gone. The policy is fixed. The refunds were issued. The neighborhood is moving on. And I am still here, sitting on my patio with a camera and a heater and a green propane canister that no one will ever find me for again. Jordan says I should write all of this down. I said I already did. He said I should publish it. I said no one would care. He said the people who paid bogus HOA fees would care. I said maybe. He said definitely. I said I would think about it. I thought about it. I decided he was right. So here it is, the whole story, from the neon orange notice to the rolling file cart to the emergency board vote to the refund check in my desk drawer. I wrote it down because documentation matters, because the next person dealing with a bad HOA board needs to know they can win, and because Tina Hughes was wrong. I do have the stomach for this. I had it the whole time. The neighborhood is quiet tonight. The snow is falling again, light and steady, covering the sidewalks and the lawns and the mailbox cluster. I can see the cart tracks in the snow, faint lines from where residents rolled their trash bins to the curb this morning. By tomorrow, the tracks will be gone, buried under fresh snow, and the neighborhood will look clean and new again. I am sitting on my patio with the heater running, the flame steady, the propane tank sitting exactly where it belongs. My camera is on the table beside me, batteries charged, memory card empty, ready for whatever comes next. Jordan texted me an hour ago asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I said yes. He said he would pick me up in 20 minutes. I am still waiting. The Trails at Juniper Association is not perfect. The rules are too long, the board is too slow, and the management company charges too much. But it is mine. I paid for it, I fought for it, and I am not going anywhere. Tina thought she could run me out with notices and fees and threats. She thought I would fold, pay up, and disappear. She was wrong. I kept my hands open and my voice calm, because the real move was still ahead. I gathered proof, I built a case, and I waited for the right moment. When the moment came, I did not hesitate. I played the recording, I showed the metadata, and I watched the board do what they should have done years ago. I won because I had evidence. I won because I had help. I won because I refused to quit. And now I am sitting on my patio in the cold, watching the snow fall, thinking about the way power works in a place like this. Power is not the loudest voice or the biggest cart or the longest list of rules. Power is knowing what you are owed, proving you are right, and refusing to back down. Power is keeping receipts. Jordan pulls into the parking lot. I see his headlights sweep across the snow. I stand up, turn off the heater, and grab my coat. The propane canister stays where it is. I lock the patio door and walk to his car. He rolls down the window. You ready? I nod. Yeah. Let's go. We drive out of the neighborhood, past the mailbox cluster, past the clubhouse, past the prefab office with the Trails at Juniper sign. The streets are empty and the snow is falling harder now, covering the pavement in a smooth white layer. Jordan turns on the wipers. The blades scrape across the windshield, clearing 2 arcs of visibility. He glances at me. You okay? I look out the window at the neighborhood disappearing behind us. Yeah. I am good. He nods and turns up the heat. We drive in silence for a while. The radio is playing something low and quiet, a song I do not recognize. Jordan taps the steering wheel in time with the beat. I watch the snow fall on the windshield, each flake catching the headlights for a split second before melting away. We stop at a red light. Jordan looks at me again. You ever think about what would have happened if you had just paid the fee? I think about it. I think about the $450, the lien, the foreclosure threat, the way Tina's voice sounded on that recording. I think about the 12 residents who got their refunds, the new enforcement policy, the way the neighborhood feels now. I think about the rolling file cart sitting empty in some storage unit or trash pile, forgotten and useless. I shake my head. No, I do not think about that. The light turns green. Jordan accelerates. We drive through the intersection and leave the neighborhood behind. The snow keeps falling, steady and relentless, covering everything in white. By morning, the streets will be buried, the sidewalks will be impassable, and the mailbox cluster will be lost under a drift. And when the sun comes up and the plows roll through, the neighborhood will dig itself out, the way it always does. I lean back in my seat and close my eyes. The heater is warm, the car is moving, and the fight is over. I won. Tina lost. The board fixed the policy. The management company issued refunds. The neighborhood is moving on. And I am still here, still standing, still taking photos, still keeping receipts. Jordan says something, but I do not hear it. I open my eyes. What? He grins. I said you are a legend now. The guy who took down the HOA Karen. I shake my head. I am not a legend. I am just the guy with the camera. He laughs. Same thing. I do not argue. We pull into the restaurant parking lot and he parks near the door. The snow is piling up on the hood of the car, thick and heavy. We get out and walk inside. The restaurant is warm and loud and full of people. We find a table by the window and sit down. Jordan orders a beer. I order water. He raises an eyebrow. You sure? I nod. Yeah. I am good. We sit in silence for a moment, watching the snow fall outside the window. The flakes are bigger now, fat and slow, drifting down like feathers. Jordan leans forward. You think she will ever come back? I think about Tina, about the way she looked when she walked out of that meeting, about the way her face went pale when I played the recording. I think about the rolling file cart and the purple parka and the way she used to stand by the mailbox with that folder open, pointing at rules that did not exist. I shake my head. No. She is done. He nods. Good. The waitress brings our drinks and we order food. Jordan talks about work, about a new project, about a problem with a server that he fixed at 3 a.m. I listen and nod and drink my water. The food comes and we eat. The snow keeps falling. The restaurant stays warm. The night goes on. When we finish, Jordan pays the bill and we walk back to the car. The snow is ankle-deep now, soft and powdery, covering the parking lot in a smooth blanket. Jordan brushes the snow off the windshield and we get in. He starts the car and the heater kicks on, blowing cold air that slowly warms up. He looks at me. You want to go home? I nod. Yeah. We drive back through the empty streets, past the shopping centers and the traffic lights, and the neighborhoods buried in snow. The roads are slick, and Jordan drives slow, both hands on the wheel, leaning forward to see through the flakes. We pass a subdivision with a big sign, and a guardhouse, and a gate. Jordan points. You ever think about moving somewhere without an HOA? I look at the sign. I think about the rules and the fees and the notices and the rolling file cart. I think about the way Tina's voice sounded when she said, "You do not have the stomach for this." I think about the refund check in my desk drawer and the photo on my wall and the propane canister sitting on my patio. I shake my head. No, I like where I am. He glances at me. Really? I nod. Really? He shrugs. Okay. Your call. We pull into the trails at Juniper Association. The streets are empty, the streetlights are dim, and the snow is still falling. Jordan drives slow, tires crunching on the packed snow, until we reach my building. He stops in front of my unit. I open the door and step out into the cold. The air is sharp and clean, and the snow is falling harder now, thick and fast, covering the ground in a fresh white layer. I lean back into the car. Thanks for dinner. Jordan nods. Anytime. See you next week? Yeah. Next week. I close the door and he drives away. I stand in the parking lot and watch his taillights disappear around the corner. Then I turn and walk to my door. The patio is buried in snow, the heater is off, and the propane canister is almost invisible under a white mound. I brush the snow off the tank and check the valve. It is closed, secure, exactly where it should be. I unlock the door and step inside. The apartment is dark and cold. I turn on the lights in the heat and hang my coat on the hook by the door. My camera is on the table, my laptop is on the desk, and the framed letter is on the wall. I walk to the window and look out at the neighborhood. The snow is falling steady now, covering the rooftops and the lawns and the sidewalks. The mailbox cluster is buried, the clubhouse lights are off, and the streets are empty. I sit down at my desk and open my laptop. I pull up the folder labeled HOA 2025 and scroll through the files. The photos, the recordings, the emails, the notices, the metadata, the timeline. Everything is there, everything is backed up, everything is ready. I close the folder and open a new document. I stare at the blank screen for a long time. Then I start typing. I write about the neon orange notice and the propane canister and the rolling file cart. I write about the phone calls and the emails and the meetings. I write about the lien and the tow truck and the recording. I write about the way Tina's voice sounded and the way the board looked at her and the way the room went silent. I write about the refund check and the new policy and the way the neighborhood feels now. I write for an hour, maybe 2. The words come easy, the story flows, and the screen fills up with text. When I finish, I save the document and close the laptop. I stand up and walk to the window. The snow has stopped. The sky is clearing. The streetlights are reflecting off the white ground, casting a soft glow over the neighborhood. I think about Tina, about where she is now, about whether she thinks about this place, about whether she regrets anything. I think about the rolling file cart and the purple parka and the way she used to stand by the mailbox like a gatekeeper, like someone who mattered. I think about the way she walked out of that meeting, alone and defeated, the cart squeaking behind her. I think about the 12 residents who got their refunds, about the woman with the mailbox flag and the man with the truck. I think about the new rules chair and the new policy, and the way the board asks for feedback now. I think about the way the neighborhood has changed, the way it feels quieter, safer, more like a place people want to live. And I think about me, about the way I stood by the mailbox with my phone recording, about the way I kept my voice calm and my hands open, about the way I refused to quit. I think about the propane canister sitting on my patio, still there, still visible, still mine. I think about the camera on my table and the receipts in my folder and the way I learned to fight back. I won. I won because I documented everything. I won because I had help. I won because I refused to give up. And I won because Tina Hughes was wrong. I do have the stomach for this. I had it the whole time. The neighborhood is quiet. The snow is settling. The fight is over. And I am still here, sitting at my desk, looking out at the trails at Juniper Association, knowing that I did what I had to do. I fought the HOA. I won. And I am not going anywhere.